Hello, and it's officially time for your Week 13 preview. Maria Taylor alongside Tony Dungy and Mike Florio. Guys, we had a couple of bye weeks, but we're back at it again. We're back at it again. And it's a good time to be back because I counted it up. There's 18 teams that are at least at 500 or better. But this week, we're going to start our conversation in the AFC because Monday Night Football, there's going to be a showdown with the Patriots going on the road to take on the Bills. The Bills have been a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team. The Patriots have won 6 straight, and they seem to be one of the more consistent teams in the league, Coach. So we'll start with you with the headline and what you're looking forward to seeing in this AFC matchup.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head. The Patriots have been consistent. They've just gotten better and better every week. We've seen up and down performances from Buffalo, but I think this game is really going to hinge on Buffalo running the football. December in Buffalo, and you're playing a team that in New England that has tremendous pass defense, spotty run defense. So I don't think Buffalo's going to be able to go in and just throw the ball all over the stadium and win the game. They're going to have to control the game on the ground. Josh Allen definitely is going to have to make plays, but how well will Buffalo be able to run? I think that's going to be the key to the game.
And the Bills have to be wondering, like, we thought we were going to at least have a few years of the division to ourselves without having to worry about the Patriots. We had 1 year. And now the Patriots are in first place again this late in the season. But, Coach, I think you're absolutely right. Because you know what the Patriots are going to do. They're going to try to take away Stephon Diggs, shut down the passing game, and dare the Bills to run the football. And one thing I'm going to be watching for, because after Josh Allen's rookie year, when we saw him run the ball a lot throughout the regular season, I thought they started to be more careful with him because of the potential for injury, holding him as a runner until we got to the postseason. He had a huge rushing performance against the Texans in the game. Remember, they were up 16-0 in the second half and lost to Houston. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't unleash him as a runner on Monday night as they try to beat back the Patriots and reclaim the division, because the Patriots are going to say to the Bills, we're not going to let you throw it. We're going to dare you to run it. And it's not just going to be Devin Singletary then. Maybe it's going to be some Josh Allen running the football and the Bills throwing caution to the wind a little bit earlier than they ordinarily would when they would allow him to run the ball more in the single elimination setting in January.
I think you're exactly right, Mike. That's what's going to have to happen. You look at some of the big games Lamar Jackson has had against New England. They have trouble with running quarterbacks. And Buffalo, you're going to have to pull out all the stops and win this game, because if you don't win this game, the chances of you going into New England and winning a must-win game later on are very, very slim. So to me, that's the way the game should play out. Josh Allen, be a factor early, running the football as well as throwing.
Coach, do you have any concerns with Josh Allen's almost some inconsistency in the pass game as well? 7 interceptions over the last 4 games. Or if you had to diagnose maybe the issue in the pass game, it would be what?
I think they've become too reliant on that. Oh, Josh can make big plays. It doesn't matter. We don't run the ball that well, or we don't run the ball even that much. We'll just let Josh make these plays. And when you're playing against teams that can't rush the passer, or teams that don't have great pass defense, that can happen. But you play New England and all those good defensive backs and tight man coverage, you're not going to just throw it for 400 yards up and down the field. And Josh, you know, he's got to be careful with the football. It's going to come down to turnovers. And I think he's got to understand how this game is going to be played.
Yeah, especially when you're going against J.C. Jackson, the AFC Defensive Player of the Month. I mean, New England has found ways to force turnovers. And Florio, you can help us understand the psyche of the Patriots right now, because in that locker room, you've got to think that this consistent play has them believing that special things could happen this season, because they really have been very, very solid these last 6 weeks.
Bill Belichick spoke a couple of weeks ago about how the chemistry has developed for this team, and it's not something that you can force. You can't engineer it. It just has to sort of happen. And winning helps. If you're successful at anything that you do, there's going to be a better chemistry and vibe and feel among the workers than if you are getting beat every week like they are in Detroit. So it helps that they've found this winning vibe, but they really have come together and they've reached this identity, and it feels a lot like it did 20 years ago when they were winning games without a high-performing quarterback. They're just doing what they have to do defensively, offensively, both sides of the ball, and they're winning games convincingly. 35-10 roughly is the average margin of the last 6 games. So it's working well. And it just has to sort of happen, like Belichick said, and it's happening this year, and they're going to ride it as far as they can.
And, Coach, we really haven't seen anything different from this Patriots team. It's like the Patriots of old, which is going to be a consistent and steady Mac Jones leading the offense. He's completing about 70% of his passes. I mean, as a rookie, first time under center. And then a defense that's going to be opportunistic, not make a lot of mistakes. They do not hurt themselves. What has impressed you most about the way that the Patriots have evolved and the chemistry has changed, as Florio has said, as the season has gone on?
I just laugh because it's a movie that we've seen before. And it's a team that goes out and you look at them and then you say, who are their really great players? And you could say, okay, J.C. Jackson, maybe, but who else is really at the top of the list at their position? But they play so well together and they go out there every week and they play the same way. And they're going to make it tough for you in the red zone. They're not going to give you long touchdown passes and long touchdown runs. They're going to force takeaways. And then offensively, they just kind of play that field position game. And when there's a chance to strike, they do. But after the game, you kind of look and just say, man, what did they really do? What did they do well? And there's nothing they did outstanding, but everything was just the way it should be. And all of a sudden, as Mike said, it's 28-15, and you say, how did that happen? But that's the Patriot way.
Yep. They just sit back, look, okay, we'll let you hurt yourself and we'll just keep doing what we do. And at the end of the game, we walk away with the win is what seems to continue to happen. But obviously the AFC East will be on the line, a huge Monday matchup against the Bills. We'll all be watching that one. But let's talk about what we're going to see on Sunday. We've got Ravens. We've got Steelers. And it's interesting because obviously Lamar Jackson is coming off of 4 turnovers against the Cleveland Browns. But the Steelers, it's like they have to get something going in the right direction. If you had to come up with your headline for this game, Mike, it would be what?
Well, it's Tomlin versus Harbaugh. It's one of the great coaching rivalries we've seen in this generation, right? They've faced each other at least twice per year, every year since 2008. They know each other as well as anyone. I'm just concerned that this time around, the Steelers are overmatched physically without T.J. Watt there, with an aging Ben Roethlisberger, with a team that is really showing signs of wear and tear, and from a talent standpoint isn't in the same category currently as the Ravens. But these games tend to be close more often than not. The Ravens have never been favored in Pittsburgh against Ben Roethlisberger. They've been favored 3 times during Roethlisberger's career when he wasn't playing, and each of those times, they only won the game by 3 points. I think the Steelers will find a way to keep it close. I think Mike Tomlin trying to push the buttons on his players to get them to play with a physicality that was lacking against the Bengals, appealing to them to really dig down and come up with something to match Baltimore. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game. And, you know, every time you write the Steelers off, Coach, they find a way. I've been studying this team for 50 years now. I've lived in and around Pittsburgh. When they are the most dangerous when you say they're done. And people are saying they're done, and I'm probably one of those people, too. I look at their run offense, their pass offense, their run defense. Joe Mixon kind of ate them up last week. So you say, how in the world are they going to stop this running game of Baltimore? Can they score enough to hang in there? It doesn't look like it. But the other side of the coin, Baltimore has been playing with fire. Baltimore has won a bunch of games in the last month that you're not that impressed with. They find a way to win. Lamar Jackson throws 4 picks, and they still find a way to win. But this is Pittsburgh-Baltimore. We have to understand that. And as they always say, in these kind of rivalries, you can throw the records out, throw the stats out. This is going to be a tight, hard-fought game, and it's going to come down to the wire. I love that you brought up the fact that these two coaches have seen each other a lot, Florio. It's their 30th meeting, and Tomlin's leading it 15-14. That's how close these two rivals have been since these head coaches have been going against each other. And, Coach, I'm just curious, when you're a coach on the sideline, you're going up against another guy that you're just so familiar with. How do you describe what that type of game is like? You know it's going to have to come down to what happens on the field.
You're not going to fool them. They're not going to fool you. You know what they're going to do. They know what you're going to do. So it's not like, hey, we've got this secret game plan now. We can unleash this. They will never expect it. That doesn't happen in these type of games. These teams play their game. Who's going to do it the best? Who's going to come up with that key play in the fourth quarter? And I think both sides know that.
All right. Well, the AFC North leading Baltimore Ravens taking on the Steelers, and the Ravens right now, they are the only team in the AFC with just the 3 losses. Now let's talk about the Chargers and the Bengals. The Bengals are coming off a huge win against the Steelers, so it only makes sense that we talk about them right here. What's been very impressive about them is that they've been able to find explosive plays on offense. They're making plays on defense. And there's a lot of Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, the Jimmies and the Joes. They got the Joes going. So let's start with the Bengals. And what excites you most about what you've seen so far, Florio, from them this season?
Well, I mean, Joe Burrow has completely changed the narrative around the Bengals, and he welcomes that. This has been a team that's been among the most dysfunctional in the NFL for a long time now. Haven't won a playoff game since the 1990 season, and they aren't even getting to the playoffs. At least they went through that stretch under Marvin Lewis where they were getting there every year. They can't even get back there. Burrow forgets about the past, focuses on the future. I like how they've learned on the fly who they are. Burrow told me after the win over Pittsburgh he had kind of fallen in love with the big play. He learned during the bye week to just take what the defense is giving. They've gone through that Chiefs transformation on a more accelerated basis where they have to be more patient, and it's working. Joe Mixon has been great the past couple of weeks. They are taking what the defense gives them, and they are a very balanced team. Better on defense than they get credit for, balanced on offense, and we're waiting for that team coach that's going to emerge at the right time and get hot in December, and the Bengals are on that short list of teams that can do it because they're kind of already starting to do it.
And it's one thing that you just mentioned, Mike, that I think is the difference. They believe, and I think it starts with Joe Burrow. You know, we saw them, they're 2 games before the bye, and they're flat, they lose, and here these are the real Bengals. But they went into their bye and they came back and they said, you know what, all we've got to do is get back to playing our game, and we can do that. We're one of the best teams in the league, and they came out with 2 solid performances. So to me, that's what is a little bit different about this group. They believe in themselves, and a loss here or a bad quarter or a turnover is not going to all of a sudden shoot their psyche down. So I like where they are, and you're right, their defense is playing better than people really perceive. Everybody looks, Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase. They've got all these stars on offense. They've got solid defenders. They're playing hard. They're making people work for it. And, watch out for the Bengals in the home stretch, I believe.
Yeah, they're looking for their first playoff appearance since 2015. And just from covering Joe Burrow in college at LSU, I feel like Florio, he brought that same thing to the locker room, whereas like all of a sudden there's a belief of, why shouldn't we be national champions? There's enough talent here. Why can't we make it happen? And a supreme confidence that kind of eked its way into the entire team, and it did result in a title. So we'll see how far they can go with Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, all those pieces that you guys just named working together so well down the stretch. Meanwhile, the Chargers, a little bit of struggles. I mean, defensively, coach, the last 7 games, they've given up at least 27 points. Offensively, maybe a little inconsistent. What concerns you most with what you've seen? Obviously, the Chargers coming off a loss to the Broncos.
I think it's the defense and people saying, hey, we've got the formula to play the Chargers. They're dynamic on offense, but if we run the ball, have time-consuming drives, keep the ball away from their offense, and away from Justin Herbert, then we'll see how they respond. Are they going to get a little antsy and take some chances? Is Justin going to throw some balls that maybe he shouldn't throw? And so to me, they've got to get things going on defense where people can't just pound the football and have 5 and 6 and 7 minute drives against them. I still like them. I think they're going to be fine, but that defense concerns me a little bit.
And you just never know what you're going to get from the Chargers. That inconsistency, that they started off so great and then they flattened out. Remember that game they went to Baltimore and we thought, well, what a showdown this is going to be, what Justin Herbert and company can do against Lamar Jackson. It's like they didn't even get off the bus for that game. So I think that this is just a team that is still trying to find its way under Brandon Staley, and Any given week, I just don't know what Chargers are going to show up. And if the ones that beat the Steelers show up, they got a chance. If the ones that didn't show up in Denver show up, they don't have a chance.
Easily said. And it's interesting because we're talking about two completely different mindsets. It's like the Bengals are on this coming off of that, beating the Steelers, scoring 41 points, and the Chargers are in this up and down mode, kind of almost trying to figure it out. If you had to say what the mindset is, Florio, of especially the Chargers offense, because we keep talking about Justin Herbert and what they have been able to do, but it's been inconsistent, what would it be right now?
Well, I think we're at the stage in the season where it's important for every offensive coordinator and play caller to fully and completely understand what they have put on film, what tendencies they're showing, what tells they may have, what plays they're running out of what formations, because there's more than enough evidence out there of the Joe Lombardi offense as applied to the LA Chargers to let defenses like Coach Dungy would be doing study that film and see, oh, when they're in this set, here's what they do. When they do this, 3rd and 5, here's what they do. You have to crack your own code, and you have to come up with ways to zig when they think you're going to zag, and that's the test of great offensive coaching. Doing something now in that setting that defies everything you've put on film the first 12 weeks of the season. And I'm not sure that they're doing that because it seems like they're finding ways, the defenses are like Vic Fangio and company last week, to figure out what the Chargers are trying to do.
So true.
And I really think we can look at the Chargers, and they're like everybody else in the AFC. When we are on our show and we say at the end of the night, who's the best team in the AFC this week? And one week we say it's Baltimore. Then they lose to Miami, when Miami had only won one game. And then we say, well, it's got to be Tennessee. And then they go out and have kind of some off performances. And maybe it's Buffalo, and then they lose to the Jaguars. And Drew Brees, he was all over the Chargers, at one point. And then they've had some down games. So I think everybody's in that mode of just being up and down. Who is going to get hot and make this thing click for 4 or 5 weeks in a row? And right now, the Patriots seem to be doing that the best. The Chargers still have some dynamic games, but they have some off games. And as Mike said, which team are we going to see?
Mm-hmm. And what I keep coming back to is there's 12 teams in the AFC that are 500 or better. So you're right. It's kind of like, who is the best team? Who's going to go and rise to the top? And really, who's going to get hot down the stretch? Let's talk about what the Broncos want to do when they have to go on the road to take on Kansas City. It's obviously our Sunday night football game this week, and they have not beat the Chiefs since 2015. That is an 11-game skid. That's not what you like to hear, Coach, but the opportunity is there, coming off a big win against the Chargers. What are the odds that you're giving the Broncos that they can finally end this skid that they've been on?
I think this is their best chance in a long time, because I really think, especially when they go into Kansas City, in the past, they've gone in with this mentality, somehow we've got to get 35 points. We're playing this dynamic offense, and so they end up doing things that aren't really them. But I think now they can look at it and say, you know what? We've seen the Chiefs offense, and even on their best days, they're struggling. This might be a game that we can win 20-17 or 24-21. So we don't have to do things out of character on offense. And I think if Teddy Bridgewater goes in and protects the football, if they have their two-headed running game going, and they can keep the ball for, 33, 34 minutes, and make a couple of plays against the Kansas City passing attack, we could have a great game in the fourth quarter, and Denver could win it.
A point that Peter King made this morning on PFT Live, the idea that Patrick Surtain II, a great rookie corner that the Broncos took in round one, a guy that Patrick Mahomes lavished praise upon earlier this week. If Surtain can neutralize Tyreek Hill, that's really going to force the Chiefs to go elsewhere. Now, Travis Kelce, a big part of the offense, obviously, but if you can take away Tyreek Hill with Patrick Surtain, you can really go a long way toward taking care of the rest of the Kansas City offense. And, Coach, like you said, you don't need to score 35 points if you can do that. And it's going to be on Teddy Bridgewater to do just enough to generate the offense necessary. It's not going to be easy. I mean, it's Arrowhead Stadium, Sunday Night Football. It's going to be as loud as anything Denver's experienced this year. It's going to be high stakes. But I see it as an opportunity for a guy like Teddy Bridgewater. 5 years after that devastating knee injury, they're on the right side of 500 for the first time this late in the season since their Super Bowl win in 2015. This is a great opportunity for the Broncos to show that they belong in the conversation among the teams that are getting it done in the AFC.
But I really think they need to go in and play like some of these other teams have played. To me, if they take the approach that you just mentioned, hey, I'm going to put Patrick Surtain out there and he's going to handle Tyreek Hill, that could be disaster. Play like everybody else, make them throw the ball short and underneath, try to come up with an interception, a penalty, a sack, but don't go out and say, hey, we're just going to play our game and these guys aren't very good. They exploded on the Raiders when they weren't playing good football. Kansas City did. To me, you've got teams have shown the blueprint how to play these guys. Let's see if they can adjust.
Mm-hmm. Pat Surtain, the rookie, is coming off 2 interceptions against the Chargers. One of them was a pick 6. And I love that you brought up rookies because you kind of look at the class. Javonte Williams playing well for the Broncos, Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning. They got a lot of guys out there that are about to experience Kansas City for the first time. They got to play in Arrowhead, so that'll be interesting too. It'll either be one of those moments where you don't know what you don't know, or you know too much and you're going to be a little bit afraid and on your toes. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, coming off of a bye week, they've won 4 straight, but remember they lost 4 of their first 7 games. So what's changed for them, Coach? What's going well now for Kansas City?
Well, they stopped turning the ball over. That has helped, and their defense is playing better. To me, when they got Melvin Ingram and they were able to put Chris Jones back inside, I think that made all the difference in the world. Chris Jones is a dominant defensive tackle, one of the best in football. He's an okay defensive end. I think they lost a lot. They lost a lot of their identity. But having that pass rush going now and having Chris Jones just stir things up inside, that has given them a lot of confidence. They still haven't put their total game together. Maybe they do it after the bye. We'll see. But I think the confidence is coming back in Kansas City.
And I think a key guy to watch for the Chiefs down the stretch is Josh Gordon. Because when he first arrived, Patrick Mahomes, this was after they beat Washington earlier this year, either Washington or Philly, he went on and on about Josh Gordon. And not that long ago, Andy Reid said Gordon just needs a little more time to get himself into football shape. Well, then now they've had the bye week. And to have that option who could rise up in the pass game across from Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, that could be what they're missing. Remember how important Sammy Watkins was to the Super Bowl run and the play he made in the Super Bowl against Richard Sherman, getting open when they needed it most. If Gordon can step up down the stretch into the postseason, that's a huge advantage for the Chiefs.
Well, that's going to be our Sunday Night Football game again, and we will be coming on right before 7 o'clock Eastern. You can catch us on Football Night in America. Guys, we did pretty good for a couple of bye weeks. We're right back in it. The consistency, the chemistry. Just call us the Patriots, kind of, for now. All right, guys, we will see you on Sunday, and I hope everyone out there enjoys the rest of their weekend.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.